You want to self-improve? Stop looking for a shortcut and go find your alarm clock. Find your discipline and find your guts and your passion and your drive and find your will.
I was not really good at anything. You know, I wasn't the best runner, I wasn't the best swimmer, I wasn't the best at the obstacle course. I was kind of in the middle on everything, which is actually not a bad place to be, because if you're great at something, it usually might mean that you're weak somewhere else. So for instance, guys that were great at the obstacle course, maybe they weren't that good in the water, or someone that was a great runner, maybe that weren't that great of a swimmer. So if you were great at something, sometimes you had weakness in other areas. For me, I was not that great at anything, but I didn't have any super weaknesses. And so, you know, I was able to make it through the training. But if people have issues and problems, the training will find them and it'll exploit them. You know, honestly, SEAL training is this big, they try and put this big mystical thing on SEAL training, and it's actually not that big of a deal. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, because it's hard, but you go there, you have to run, swim, do a bunch of push-ups, pull-ups, dips, rope climbs, that's what you do. Sometimes you don't get to sleep very much, sometimes you're really cold, but it's all just not that big of a deal. You go there, you don't quit. It's not some big life-changing experience. I didn't have some eureka moment about my inner self or anything like that. You show up, you don't quit, that's what training is. And so I don't really, and plus it's a little tiny part of your career.
While you're trying to become successful, one of the best things that you can do is know what you want to do. You don't have to know how to get there, but know what you want to do. Have an end point and have an end goal, so that way you can connect the dots along the way. You need to make sure that you're constantly ready for the next chapter of your life. The best way to do that would be always be one step ahead no matter what's going on in your life. Make sure that you're confident in yourself of figuring out what you want to do and the best way to go about it. You see, there's so many different people in this world and everybody has their own story. So it's best for you to not follow anybody else's specifically and make your own. There's going to be so many people who are going to tell you, you need to do it this way or you need to do it that way, or you're not doing this right and you're doing that wrong, whatever the case may be. And you need to take their input depending on who they are and how much they truly care about you. Because if they don't genuinely care about you and they're telling you things that you're doing wrong, they're probably just extremely jealous and wish that they are ready to pursue their dreams like you are. And they're gonna want to pursue their dreams and aspirations with as much veracity as you're doing right now. Because the key is confidence. If you can wake up every day and know that whatever it is you're doing is gonna happen and be that dedicated to yourself and your craft, good things will come.
From these specific events or these specific scenarios, and I applied those for the rest of my career and for the rest of my life, and I apply them today. And so what I did was I started off by telling these 3 stories about my first platoon, my second platoon, my third platoon. My first platoon, to summarize the story, we were doing a training operation. We get into this tactical situation. Everyone in my platoon is focused on one area. Everyone's looking down their weapons, waiting for a threat to expose itself, which means you got 16 guys looking down their weapons, and I'm waiting for someone to make a call. I was a new guy. I'm waiting for someone above me in the chain of command to say, hey, move here, or hey, move forward, or make some kind of a decision. And as I'm waiting, no one's doing it. So I'm a new guy. I'm scared to say anything, and I know I shouldn't say anything, so I'm just waiting, and no one's giving an order. No one's giving any direction. So I wait longer. And this goes on for probably 30 seconds or a minute, which is a really long time when you're trying to take down a target. And finally I said to myself, all right, I'm gonna see what's going on. So I actually point my weapon at the ceiling and I take a step back and I just look around. And I see that every single person in my platoon, including my platoon commander, including the assistant platoon commander, including the platoon leading petty officer, everyone is just focused on their weapons and no one's making a decision. My second platoon, we have a great platoon chief, we have a great platoon LPO, we have a great assistant platoon commander, but our platoon commander, the guy actually in charge of the whole platoon, he's not very experienced. He had come from a different job in the Navy, so he didn't have a lot of experience, and which is fine. Like, it's okay to be inexperienced as a leader. You can get through that. As long as you're humble and you listen and you take advice from other people, you should be able to do fine. No one expects you to know everything as a leader, but he didn't do that. He didn't listen. He didn't take advice. He didn't take guidance. Everything was like his way or the highway. And eventually, we in the platoon got kind of fed up with it, and we had a mutant inside of our platoon. We went to our commanding officer and said, hey, sir, we don't want to work for our platoon commander. He doesn't listen, he's arrogant, and eventually what ended up happening was this guy got fired. The mark got left even more clearly, because when that guy got fired, the guy that came in and took over for him was like, I hate to use the word legendary, but he was a pretty legendary SEAL. had a ton of experience. He'd come up through the ranks, and he had been stationed at every different kind of SEAL team, and he took over as our platoon commander. And I kind of thought to myself, well, he's gonna take over because we're a bunch of mutineers, and they need to put someone really strong that's gonna like whip us back into shape. So I was anticipating that we were gonna have this super hardcore guy. And this guy shows up, and he's got a nice smile on his face, and he's super humble. And I remember one of the first things he said to us was like, I look forward to working with you guys. And I was, that word right there, I'm gonna work with you guys. Not I'm in charge, I'm glad I'm taking over, I'm glad to be your commander. It was nothing like that. He said, hey, I'm looking forward to working with you guys. So all of a sudden, it was totally different. And he started putting us in charge of things. How do I start off the book, and how do I figure out what order to go in? That's what I started with, these 3 kind of foundational things. And I built on those things. And obviously the book Extreme Ownership, which you mentioned, that became kind of the core tenet of the way I think. But those seeds were planted in those earlier platoons. And so, although I built upon those things, it was those 3 fundamental lessons that I started with, and so that's what I started the book with.
I don't really like those words, self-help or self-management or self-improvement. I don't really like what those words have come to mean these days, because there's a lot of people out there that are constantly trying to improve themselves by looking for the one change, right? The one change in their life that's gonna make their dreams come true. And even worse, on top of that, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of self-help gurus and these hyperactive motivational speakers and these other self-appointed modern Zen yoga warriors that they're trying to sell the one thing. They're trying to sell the 9 steps or the enlightened path that's going to allow you to unlock all of your human potential and fulfill the dreams so you can live the life that you've always wanted to live. Now, I'm no guru, and I definitely don't claim to be. I'm just a man.
This is something that leaders have to deal with all the time. So clearly, out of the gate, things that are immoral, unethical, or illegal, if you participate, you're guilty. That's the way it is. Now, things that are a matter of opinion, that's where you might have to play the long game. Like maybe you don't want to do something a certain way, but if you think, oh, well, I think the jiu-jitsu class warm-ups should be doing these exercises. Yeah. And Echo thinks it should be those exercises. So Echo, these things, we should do it this way. No, we should do it this way. You dig in, I dig in. Now we end up saying, well, I'm not going to teach the class. You end up in these situations. Well, what's the big deal? What would I rather do? I'd rather play the long game. I'd rather say, hey man, can you explain why you do those exercises? Oh, here's another exercise, cool one that I learned. Isn't this good for this technique? Oh, you know how you like when I do this move? This actually helps me do it even though it's just a warm-up move. Oh, that's cool. We build a little relationship. You get to understand me. I get to understand you. Boom. All of a sudden you say, hey, I'm going to incorporate that into our warm-ups. And we're going to warm up here. Boom. Like that. There you go. Now, I understand that that's the right thing, right? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, these students need to know this escape.
Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like the video. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let us know what you thought down in the comment section below.